Good evening and welcome into Tennessee Volunteers Live here on the Voice of College Football Network. Tucker Harlan alongside Jordan Binkley with you on this wonderful Monday evening. It's been a wonderful week here in the world of Tennessee athletics. It just sparking debate online. We'll get into it later, but it has been an interesting week in Tennessee football, to say the least. Happy to have you guys along with us tonight. Shout out to those of you who have subscribed. Be sure and tell your friends about it to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Helps us out a lot. Helps you get a lot of great content as well in return. Speaking of the Voice of College Football, we have also got a website that is up and running too. It is vocfb.com, and you can check out all your different personalities for different shows, not just here with the Tennessee, but say if you want to hate watch the Florida show, then you can check out their hosts and check out their shows and when they're scheduled to go. And we got several articles there as well too now. Lots of writers contributing to the site. Hope you guys had a great weekend. I know I did. Hit the links yesterday for the first time in a while for 18 holes, so that was really nice. Hit everything well but the wedge. So that's at least somewhat reassuring, but wedge game not being good is somewhat problematic. What about you, Jordan?
I actually went to a little concert or kind of festival in Nashville recently. I forget the name of what it was called, but like Young Gravy was there, a couple EDM artists. It was
All
pretty
right.
fun, pretty fun.
Any other EDM artists I'd recognize? Because I'm familiar with Young Gravy. I just haven't listened to his stuff.
Well, I was excited for Galantis, and I thought that they had a nice set and everything. But I was with like some buddies and my girlfriend and everything, so we weren't always like paying attention to the music. But it was a fun atmosphere for sure. Oh, it was Barstool's event. That's what it was.
Oh, it was a Barstool event. Any personalities there?
Not that I saw. I was keeping my eye out for people, but no, they just had like the street blocked off there in Nashville, like leading to the bar, and there's like a little outdoor area. They had the stage and stuff, and you could like go in and out of the bar if you wanted to. Some vendors there. It was a pretty cool event.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like both of us had good weekends. And again, to our viewers and listeners, hope you guys had a nice weekend as well. We've got not a super heavy show in terms of news. We do have a few pretty big nuggets this week, though. Some of you guys will probably groan over these things, and I don't blame you for it necessarily, just because they are a little controversial. Let's face it. Just among the fan base this week. So we'll go chronologically here. I guess it was either Tuesday or Wednesday. It was announced that Tennessee's opening kickoff against Syracuse this year is at noon on the first Saturday of football season. Jordan, your initial thoughts on a noon kickoff to start the season for Tennessee?
Well, I'm not the biggest fan of it. I mean, I like being awake and watching some noon football games, but not necessarily when Tennessee is the one playing them. But I mean, of course, I'm going to tune into the game and everything, and I'm sure it'll end up being a good one. But not really that big of a noon kickoff fan, to be honest. How about you?
Yeah, I can agree with you there. I'm not a huge fan of them. I would say my preferred kickoff time, and that's, obviously of all of them, will be the night games, because who doesn't love a night game? But I would say between noon and the 3:30, I would probably go with noon, because just from a fan's perspective, let's just say, you're going to a game that Saturday. If you watch it, if you're at a noon game or a night game, you can. If you're at the noon game, you can watch all the football afterward that you want to. So you'll catch probably either late first half of the 3:30 games to all the way to the end of the night slate, and that's great. Night slate, you can watch your all the noon game and then maybe leave sometime in the first half of the 3:30 game, and that's good. 3:30, you have to leave sometime either just before or right after kickoff of the noon games, and you're not getting back until the second half of the night games a lot of the time. So I like to think about it that way. But I do understand why people are not a fan of doing kickoffs, and I totally get it. Like, that's just it's hard to manufacture environments, I guess you could say, although that's not really a concern here just because that game is being played in Atlanta.
Yeah, and on the flip side too, I don't know how far it is from Knoxville to Atlanta, but I think from where I'm at, it's roughly about like 5 hours or so. So if I was like trying to go to the game, I'm probably not going to stay the night before, and I'm just gonna go travel there via car. Not really a big fan of waking up at like 5
Yeah.
o'clock in the morning or something just to go out there and prepare for the game. But I mean, it would be pretty cool too. I mean, if any Tennessee fan that does go to the game, I would recommend. I mean, I still haven't been, but to go to the College Football Hall of Fame, I mean,
Yeah.
with a noon kickoff, you could definitely do that. Like, go to the Hall of Fame right after and make a day out of that as well, which I definitely look forward to in the future. And I'm going to be in Atlanta next week. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to make it or not to the College Football Hall of Fame, but it looks really cool.
Yeah. And there's a few things to do in Atlanta too. Like, I know I've said that Atlanta is not necessarily the city that I put um, at the top of my list of destinations to go to, but there are some cool things to do there. Like, admittedly, I don't get into soft drinks, but if you love them, go to the Coke Museum. That's your place right there. The aquarium's nice. You can go catch a Braves game. And yeah, the College Football Hall of Fame is very good too. I've been there on, I think, one occasion. That's, I believe, where SEC Media Days are this year too.
Oh,
Because they had them there. Was that 2022? Maybe they had them there because they had them in Nashville in 2023. But there's some cool things to do in Atlanta, and other thing too. And you mentioned the driving, Jordan. That actually works well for some people because you can just make it down and back out of it. And you said you were wondering how far it is from Knoxville. It's about 3 on the dot.
oh,
3 on the
really?
dot. Yeah. Because I've driven down and back for a couple Braves games, actually, come to think of it. And then from Nashville, it's probably closer to 4. And then, of course, there's, and this is just educated guessing here, but when you think about the alumni base outside of the state of Tennessee, Georgia is right up there with North Carolina and just random northeastern cities for the largest Tennessee alumni population, like especially the Atlanta area. There's a lot more Tennessee fans in Georgia than people realize. But yeah, it's good for them, obviously, and you can day trip that, and even from Tennessee, you can day trip it as well. So from that aspect, it is good. And looking at this from a perspective of, let's say, a TV programmer, I was looking at the schedule for games that are supposed to be on ABC that week. And, unlike years past, it's actually pretty strong in the SEC. Like, I remember 2 years ago, Virginia and Tennessee played here in Nashville, and you had like South Carolina and North Carolina playing later that night. You had nothing in between the two of them really, because Utah and Florida had played on Thursday. Well, this year you've got some good games after that, and you've got another one in Texas and Ohio State that will be terrific. I don't know when exactly that's supposed to kick off, probably sometime at night. But again, if we're looking at this from the perspective of, let's say, a TV programmer, it would appear that they are emphasizing the need for strong environments in their games. And I say that because you look at the 2 games afterward, not to say Florida State is necessarily going to have a strong environment after a 2-10 season, but they're hosting Alabama. Maybe you can draw some people out there for it. And then you look at the night game. You got LSU playing Clemson in Death Valley, the South Carolina version of Death Valley, not LSU Death Valley, but that should be a terrific game. Both of them should be. And I think that's what the networks are going for here. If you look at it that way, I think because last year too, in 2024, you had Georgia and Clemson playing in week 1. in Atlanta. So basically the same kind of game that Tennessee and Syracuse are playing. Two programs that have won national championships, two of them each in the last 10 years, both of which are an hour and a half away from each other, playing in Atlanta at noon because you just don't have a home environment to really get juiced up. And I think that's what ESPN is doing here, because you see it too with Auburn and Baylor kicking off on Friday night. And, from just an objective fan's perspective, that's really good. Obviously, from a Tennessee perspective, you can complain about it a little bit, but from an executive standpoint, it makes sense.
Yeah, and all those games that you mentioned too, I mean, pretty exciting. I mean, that's got to be one of the stronger opening days that I can remember in recent history. I'd be really excited for that Ohio State-Texas game. I think that could be very interesting, what the implications that could be with that. But this should be a really good day for college football overall, and be interesting to see how Tennessee ends up doing. I don't know how much research that you've done into like Tennessee's history between Syracuse, but I was doing some recently.
Well, there's one in particular that you should know about.
Oh, yeah. 1998.
Of course.
Yeah, because Tennessee, I mean, they wouldn't have went to the national championship. I mean, I had to go look back, but I mean, if Jeff Hall didn't make that kick, Tennessee would have one less national championship to their name. But I found something interesting while researching, because I saw that the first matchup was in 1966. And do you know who Syracuse running backs were during the time? No,
not Jim Brown.
No.
I guess he would have been older. Yeah, that's right. But I know that the 1998 quarterback was Donovan McNabb.
Yeah,
and then former Tennessee Titans linebacker Keith Bullock was there that season, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong.
Yes, there's been so many good players in the matchup. Like, I was shocked doing my research. I mean, Dwight Freeney played in 2001 as well, and so did David Tyree, which everyone knows with the helmet catch. But in 1966, I was shocked to find out that Tennessee didn't just play against one Hall of Fame running back. They played against two in the same game, and they split carries. They played against Larry Zonka and Floyd Little. And
wow.
Yeah, they ran crazy.
That's a strong group.
Oh, yeah. And they ran crazy. I think it was 341 yards, and they were splitting it like about half and half, at least statistically. But it was very interesting to see that. And I'm surprised that Tennessee won, but apparently Dewey Warren passed for like 244, and Tennessee held Clemson to like 16 yards passing or something like that.
That's the swamp rat for you. He'll win you some games. Or he at least did win you some games back in the day that were awfully competitive, but that's why they love him. All the older fans and even some of the younger ones too. Like they know who Dewey Warren is.
Yeah, and like the fact that he threw for 244 back in like 1966, like I was shocked to see that.
Here's the thing: pass interference did not exist until sometime in like the 80s or 90s.
Really?
Yeah, people don't realize that. So you could just go up and mug wide receivers if you're a DB. It was much harder to pass back then. Like because I saw this just reading up on like Johnny Unitas, like what he did with the Colts back in the day was so impressive because pass interference didn't exist.
Yeah, I mean, if that's the case, I actually didn't know that about pass interference, but I mean, even more impressive. I mean, of course, receivers using stickum back in the day too, so they had a little bit of that advantage. But very interesting, like all the players that have played in these games, and of course, Tennessee had some great players too. John Henderson was playing during the games. Jamal Lewis, Casey Clausen, the Iceman. There was so many talented players on the field, and hopefully, some of these players from this season end up leaving a legacy like that. I'm not sure if that'll end up being the case, if some of these people will be as popular or as successful in the NFL from these two teams, but there's a lot more history between these two schools than just taking it on face value.
Syracuse, unfortunately, has been negatively affected by the collapse of the Big East, and that's, or at least the old Big East, and that's not just in football. You see it with the basketball program too. Like Jim Boeheim was a dead man walking there for about 8 or 9 years. Just not a program that did very well. And I mean, you saw it this year. Tennessee just took them to the woodshed, 96-70 win at home, in that SEC ACC challenge that the SEC won like 14-2. But yeah, Q's like, since they joined the ACC, they had one 9 or 10 win season under Dino Babers, and maybe one or two other seasons where they won 6 games or so. And it's funny because, we were talking the other week about the top 5 Tennessee games we've attended. Dino Babers was the head coach of Bowling Green in that game you mentioned, Jordan.
Really?
Yeah. He was only there for like a year or two as the head coach, but he had that job before he took the Syracuse job, and he was at Syracuse quite a while. Obviously, not a super productive tenure, but he was there for a minute. Was it Eric Dungy was the quarterback they had back in 2018? That was pretty nice. They beat West Virginia in like a Citrus Bowl or something that season. Anyway, that's Syracuse recently. And of course, Fran Brown, who they hired last year. Would they win 10 games last season? He's delivering all the champagne to Ryan Day because he let Kyle McCord go to Syracuse. He was not delivering him the champagne after that Pittsburgh game, I can tell you that. And that's going to be, and we'll talk about this a lot more as the game gets closer, but the quarterback position for both teams is an area that neither team really knows what it has there right now. Obviously, Tennessee's juggling between 3 guys. Syracuse, I think, has 1 or 2 guys that are looking like they could be starters, one of which was Steve Angeli, who Tennessee was, or I don't know if Tennessee was ever actually eyeing them. Tennessee fans on the social networks were eyeing him when he entered the portal because he was the first spring window quarterback to hit the portal.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's going to be an interesting game to say the least. Yeah, and then I don't know, the quarterback situation. I mean, yeah, it's going to be up in the air for sure. But I guess when the game comes around, both teams are going to have a lot more answers. But it's going to be hard, I would imagine, for Syracuse losing the FBS leader in passing and Kyle McCord. I'm not sure how great of a coach Fran Brown has been for quarterbacks and stuff, but I would imagine it'd be hard to replace someone like that after one season. But I mean, you could say the same for Tennessee in the situation that they're in. I mean, even though Nico didn't have the best year, still a former 5-star recruit and whatnot. I mean, there's a lot of questions that will be answered on that day.
Yeah, so we know that Josh Heupel can work well with quarterbacks. We've seen it not just here at Tennessee, but in other places too. He had Mackenzie Milton when he was down there at UCF, Drew Lock when he was at Mizzou. So he's had some productive quarterbacks in the past. Here's one, because I saw somebody, I think maybe Grant Ramey put it out the other day on Twitter. But he worked with Chucky Keaton at Utah State. Do you remember Chucky Keaton?
Yes,
Jordan?
I do remember Chucky Keaton. I didn't even know he was at Utah State.
Because I think there was maybe some injury history there with Chucky Keaton, but I remember watching them play, I think Auburn the year
Auburn,
after
they beat Auburn.
Championship. They didn't beat Auburn, but they played them close. I want to say it was like a 4-point game. So yeah, he's got some history with quarterbacks. Fran Brown, which is the other side of this, this is only his second year as Syracuse's head coach, and he's been a defensive guy and not even a coordinator, just like a position coach. So, I don't know what they've got who they've got as their offensive coordinator, but it better be strong because I just don't know much with Fran Brown other than the fact that he knows the recruiting wells up in the Northeast, because I think he had successfully recruited a lot of people to Temple when he was there or something, and got some out of the Northeast when he was at Georgia. Not that Georgia needs any recruits from the Northeast because they've got tons in their own backyard.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, Georgia's one of the best Southern states when it comes to high school recruits, or at least in my opinion. Tennessee's had a lot of talented players come out of Georgia too, like Eric Berry. I think Jamal Lewis was from Georgia as well.
The list goes on and on. Yeah, Georgia and North Carolina are probably the two, and then Alabama too. The three non-Tennessee states that Tennessee likes to recruit the hardest, I would say, just because Florida factors in there somewhat, and so does Virginia. But like you don't usually see Tennessee recruiting a whole lot out of Texas, and it does sparingly from both Texas and California because some of the best quarterbacks Tennessee has had post Peyton Manning have been California kids.
Yeah, like Tyler Bray and everything.
Casey Clausen.
Oh, Casey Clausen. I actually didn't
Yeah.
know that he was from California.
Yeah. But on the note of Georgia, and this is a good segue into what we're gonna discuss next. I think the day after kickoff time was announced, Tennessee announced its home game designations for the 2025 season. And the first one is the Checker Neyland game at home against none other than the Georgia Bulldogs. So, this may be the earliest in the year that they've ever. Well, no, that's not right because Oklahoma was pretty early when they checkered Neyland in 2015 when Tennessee lost that game. And speaking of losses, Tennessee very up and down in these games. It's a 4-4 overall record at the moment. I think the first ever checker Neyland game was the 10-9 game. Actually, I was there.
The Florida game.
Yeah, that game. You had Oklahoma the following season, or no, it was Georgia, wasn't it? Or was it Oklahoma? I get them mixed up sometimes because I just want to have these marquee home games in my head. They did beat Florida in 2016 in a checker Neyland game, and then the 41-0 game, that was a checker Neyland game, the loss to Georgia. And then they didn't do it when Jeremy Pruitt was around. And then they brought it back for the Ole Miss game, that very eventful Ole Miss game. And then they've done it twice more against Florida. And Checker Neyland is 3-1 against Florida, so maybe that is the charm that Tennessee needs to beat Florida at home at least. And then the other game was that Texas A&M game in 2023, which was a pretty fun game to be at, pretty fun game to cover. Tennessee got the win, but yeah, this is an interesting decision just because I think of all the home games, unless Oklahoma really does something this year, this is probably your most losable one. Not to say the Florida games in the past haven't been losable, but I don't know if they wanted to do it this early or not. You could have saved it for a later game.
Well, I will say Checker Neyland always brings the energy. I think I've been to 2 at this point now, or at least 1. And yeah, there's a lot of energy that comes around to it. So, I mean, I know Tennessee hasn't fared well against Georgia in previous Checker Neyland games, but I'm a little excited for it. I'm excited to see what Tennessee does. I mean, because there's still a lot of questions with Georgia, like if Gunnar Stockton is going to be the guy, or I mean, presumably he's going to be, but like how good he's going to end up being. I mean, it'll be interesting to watch. And then Georgia, like, loses talent every year. Had a dip off the past 2 seasons. So, I mean, who knows how the season goes? Maybe it could end up being a winnable game for Tennessee. We'll have to wait and see, but I'm excited about it because I feel like compared to years past, this is probably, I mean, we're still figuring out the quarterback situation at Tennessee, but I mean, if one guy ends up steps up and plays well, I mean, it could be a competitive game. Who knows?
No, go ahead, Jordan.
Oh, and I was going to say, I mean, it'd just be a nice change of pace to see Tennessee like be competitive against Georgia.
Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right about the possibility for a more competitive game against Georgia. And really, since Tennessee beat Georgia back in 2015 to end what was like a 3 or 4 year drought, they have not been competitive against Georgia at all at home. You had the 41-0 game, 19. That was a bad one. I was at that game. That was the one where they put up the Brian Maurer and Peyton Manning graphic.
No.
That as if he was going to be the next Peyton Manning, and then it just got sideways after that. I was there at each of the next 2, and then was it 21? Tennessee, because Tennessee loved to start well against Georgia, and it's not just a home thing. They do it on the road too. Like Velus Jones scored a touchdown early in that game, and then it just got sideways. Tennessee lost 41-17. And then, of course, 2023, first play of the game, Jalen Wright, 75-yard house call. Tennessee loses 38-10.
Yeah.
So, but I really do think that Tennessee has a solid shot, just knowing that there is some uncertainty on Georgia's side. And obviously, you're not going down there. So I think that gives Tennessee a little bit more of a shot if the quarterback situation is good enough for Tennessee. But, Gunnar Stockton, no pun intended, I've not bought stock in him yet as a quarterback, as an SEC quarterback. So I really do think that you have an opportunity to compete more than you have in the last 10 years with Georgia really at home.
Yeah, and I mean, of course, we're still going to figure out what ends up happening when the game comes up. But I mean, Gunnar Stockton, he's a tough quarterback for sure. Like I remember that hit that he took, I think in the SEC championship, was it?
Yeah.
I mean, the kid plays with a lot of heart. Just have to see if he can put it all together. But I mean, compared to Stetson Bennett and Carson Beck, I would believe more in Tennessee being able to stop them this year. And they lost Trevor Etienne as well. So, I mean, there's some talented players that are going to be gone from the team, but I don't know. Tennessee, I don't know. We've seen with Carson Beck the past couple of years. I mean, I know he was like hit or miss at times, but I mean, it seemed like he was a Heisman candidate every time he played against Tennessee.
Well,
so
the first time around, he actually did have a really good season in 2023. But this past year, he had like 4 or 5 multi-turnover games, and Tennessee naturally was not one of them.
Yeah,
that's just what happens with some of these quarterbacks when they see the Pantone 151C. They just play out of their minds seemingly. But that's what I got on the Checker Neyland game. Hoping for a good atmosphere there in Neyland. That should be a really fun game earlier in the season. And then you've got 3 more designations. The Arkansas game is Champions Weekend, which is, I don't know who they're honoring that weekend. They just have, I don't know, they have random teams back that have won championships in the past, just from whatever sport. Like I know they've honored like a softball and I don't know, maybe a volleyball team somewhere here and there. Here recently in Champions Weekend, which I guess was that the Alabama game last year, maybe? Because I know they honored the baseball team during that game.
I'm honestly not sure, to be honest. I know that no, honestly, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if it was the Alabama game or not. I know like Georgia a couple of years back, Peyton Manning like came out there and stuff, but I'm not sure about the Alabama game.
Yeah, the Manning curse is a thing of the past, by the way, as of 2022, which is good news for Tennessee athletics because some of the games he showed up to have just been downright dreadful for Tennessee. But again, we think it has more to do with bad coaching at this point in the past than it does with Peyton Manning making an appearance at Tennessee sporting events. Because it didn't just happen in football, too. It happened – he showed up for that 2022 baseball super regional that Tennessee lost when they went like 55-7 that year.
Was that the year that they lost to Texas?
Nah, Notre Dame.
Okay.
Yeah, that was that one because they lost at home in that game to end the season. So he's been a part of some unfortunate moments, at least in his time as an alum. But it's getting better. At least it appears to be getting better. 2 more designations, homecoming and the salute to service game, which is Veterans Day weekend. That is New Mexico State, which that gets the stamp of approval for me for homecoming because I have been to, let's see, the number's got to be 5 or maybe 6 by now for homecoming games. The first Tennessee homecoming game I went to was the 2013 Auburn game because I think they probably scheduled that just thinking, Auburn's coming in off a 3-9 season. They're not going to be that good under Gus Malzahn. Well, guess what? They made it to the national championship. They ran for over 500 yards against Tennessee and won by 30 in that season. So, yeah, that game, that 2021 Georgia game that I was talking about earlier, that was also a homecoming game. That did not end well for Tennessee. I'm trying to think, who was it in 2022? Maybe, oh no, it was UT Martin. Yeah, so UT Martin and then UConn the next 2 years. And then last year it was Mississippi State. But I want to say 2020. I mean, obviously 2020, you put an asterisk by everything. That was that awful Kentucky game that Tennessee lost 34-7 at home. Like easily one of the we went through our top 5 favorite Tennessee games we've attended. I can give you probably my top 5 pity poll for Tennessee games that I've attended. That one I think is number 2, right? Well, I don't know, because I was at 41-0 for Georgia as well. So that's either 2 or 3. Number 1 is still that Texas A&M game in 2020. And it's right up there with them. So my point in all this is for homecoming games, make sure you schedule somebody that is beatable.
Yeah, like definitely not an SEC team, for sure. And like you never want to lose on homecoming. I mean, that's just demoralizing. And I not to get too off topic, but I remember in high school there was a small school somewhere in Clarksville that scheduled the high school I was at for homecoming, and I don't know why they did that. Ended up like beating them by like 40 points, I think, at like halftime. And
I think I know what school you're talking about.
I think it was West Creek.
Yeah, because Brentwood played them too and beat up on them that season. They were not very good.
Yeah, so I mean,
yeah, no. And you mentioned that too, and that's funny because Brentwood High School did something like that once upon a time. They scheduled it a state powerhouse here in Middle Tennessee, in Murfreesboro specifically. I think you know who I'm talking about, probably.
Oakland?
They came in and steamrolled Brentwood on homecoming. But usually that's kind of the goal. Schedule a game that you think you can win. And that's what Tennessee is doing here. New Mexico State, there's no Diego Pavia. There's no Jerry Kill or any of those guys. Eli Stowers, they are not there anymore. Those guys are gone. New Mexico State is back to being the team that has only made it to, oh man, I'm going to have to refresh my memory here, like 3 or 4 bowl games ever. They've not been to very many. Let me Google this, actually. I'm interested now.
Yeah, speaking of bowl games and stuff, I wonder what the record is now, because I haven't looked up in a while. But I remember when I first started keeping up with football, Vanderbilt, I think, only had like 3 like bowl wins or something up until that point.
All right, so they have been to 5 ever. They went to the 1959 and 1960 Sun Bowls, assuming those are both in El Paso, which are not far from home. They have been to the 2017 Arizona Bowl, which broke a 57-year drought of bowl appearances. And then they went to back-to-back bowls in 22 and 23, the Quick Lane Bowl and the New Mexico Bowl. So that is Tennessee's homecoming opponent right there. None other than the New Mexico State Aggies. One of, I guess it's 3 Aggie teams in FBS. It's them, Utah State, and of course, none other than the fighting Texas Aggies, Texas A&M.
And what even is a Aggie exactly? Is it like agriculture related? Because Texas A&M is an agricultural like school, right? That does like farming.
Agriculture
and
mechanical is what they call themselves. I thought for a few years it was agriculture and military. It's not, which is, it messes with me just because, you see the Corps Cadet out there and you think military, but that's not what it is.
Yeah. Interesting little tradition that they have there.
Yeah. And then final designation, we mentioned Diego Pavia a little bit ago, and this will obviously make sense because it's the last game of the season, but senior day is against Vanderbilt this year. I'm trying to think, when was the last time Tennessee lost on a senior day? It's not been, well, I guess maybe 2020. It would have been senior day, and maybe for Texas A&M. I don't know for sure because the band wasn't even at that game in 2020. No, it would have been 2018 against Mizzou would be the last full capacity one when Drew Lock came in here and they won like 50-17 against Tennessee.
Yeah, I remember Missouri had our number or had Tennessee's number for a little bit there. That was
Yeah,
a weird situation. I remember they had Michael Sam, and then they had another good defensive end
they had a
too.
couple. Shane Ray, Marcus Golden, Charles Harris, all those dudes were good that come through Mizzou. They have some talent up there at Mizzou now. Don't sleep on it. They just don't care as much about athletics as some of these other schools do here in the SEC.
Well, I feel like it had to left a sour taste in a lot of Tennessee fans' mouth, and I sure know it did for me. When Missouri just like came into the SEC and was competing against Tennessee, because I think a lot of SEC fans didn't really want them in there to begin with. I know
Yeah,
when everything was going on and they announced that they were going to bring in 2 more schools, I was vouching for Georgia Tech and maybe Clemson, but of
yeah.
course that didn't end up being the case.
Well, I think a lot of people do not really care for Missouri being in the SEC because their one kind of natural rival is Oklahoma in the SEC, and like that's only somewhat of a rivalry. The Arkansas game, the trophy is cool. The game itself is very forced. I'm sorry. It's not a traditional rivalry. Give me the battle of the boot between Arkansas and LSU every day of the week before I watch Arkansas and Missouri play. Although I will say Columbia is a pleasantly, surprisingly nice town. Having been there on one occasion, was pretty nice when I was up there actually. But yeah, they hate Kansas more than they hate any SEC school. Which, by the way, they do play this year in football, which should be
Oh,
fun. Should be fun for that reason, just because Mizzou, again, no true natural rivals in the SEC. So, speaking of hot controversies, we've got a very hot controversy here in Tennessee athletics, and you've probably seen it thrown around already on the interwebs over the course of the week, and it has to do with Tennessee athletics contract with Nike expiring here in 2026 and an apparent possibility that Tennessee may not renew that contract and could very well move back to Adidas. The Richard G. West tweet has already been sent. I saw it earlier this afternoon, which, by the way, I'm not saying you should take your information from him necessarily, but he's been more right than wrong lately. I got to be honest. He might know more than you think he does. But anyway, I'm curious to hear your thoughts, Jordan. What is your preference, Nike or Adidas, for Tennessee's athletic apparel here in the future?
as far as apparel or uniforms?
Well, uniforms. Let's just say I should not have said apparel in the first place, but yeah, uniforms, because that's what Tennessee fans are very concerned about with this deal potentially breaking.
Well, as far as the uniforms go, I'll say since Tennessee switched to Nike, I think it's been a good thing for Tennessee. Because Adidas was getting a little bit questionable there. I mean, after I think 2010, they ended up getting like the Tech Fit jerseys, which I initially liked, but looking back on it, the colors didn't really seem to match up all the time on
You talking
Tennessee's.
about the yellow numbers?
Yeah, like there's always just a little yellowish tint. It didn't seem like Adidas could get the orange right until around the time when Adidas was going out the door, like in like 2013, 2014, they like finally stepped it up. But even then, they had like over designed patterns on the shoulders. They put like the power T like right above the chest and everything. I mean, and then the smoky grays were really cool initially because Tennessee was changing things up. But in the grand scheme of things, like compared to Nike, not really that impressive. But I will say my one complaint that I have had with Nike since Tennessee's made the switch is I've never been a big fan of the number font.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I'm not a huge fan of it either. I just think I don't know. it doesn't feel super traditional. It just looks kind of trendy almost. I don't know if that's the right word to use, but overall, I do think the designs are cleaner. And I know there are several people that are arguing that Adidas would be fine to go back to just because that is what Tennessee was wearing in 1998. And look, obviously, I'm going to age both me and you when I say this, Jordan, but we were not alive and well then. The kids today were certainly not alive and well then that are going into college football programs now. That might as well be ancient history to them. And you and I are from a generation that really began to care about the brands that they wore, of just any kind of athletic apparel, whether it be jerseys, compression shirts, anything of that matter. And what school in particular really started to blow up because of eccentric designs when we were growing up with their uniforms?
Oregon.
Of course. And obviously Phil Knight is a big factor there. He gives them all the Nike money. But you just look at the schools that have Nike and you just compared to the ones who don't. Like there is a very serious difference in the kind of recruit that they're getting. Like Nike is your Alabamas, your Floridas, your Georgias, Michigans, Ohio States. Like the two best ones that I can think of that are Adidas are Miami and Texas A&M. Miami has been a shell of its former self. Texas A&M, no matter how good they think they're going to be, they're never going to be as good as they think they're going to be in college football. That's just been a problem for them going back several years now. But yeah, it's a big difference. And I don't know about you personally, but I prefer Nike apparel over any kind of Adidas apparel. Like my shoes, I only get the same kind of Nike shoes. And part of it is because, and this is a tangent for another day, but shoe shopping is a bit of a pain for me. But it's just a better feel. It feels cooler and it looks cooler. And there's the whole look good, feel good, play good thing. And I think that's what some of these recruits are into. Now, obviously, there's actual money involved here, and there has been a push to make Tennessee the flagship, so to speak, of Adidas sponsorships in college football. So if it pays them more, then maybe that helps from an NIL perspective, and maybe kids are getting away from the care that they have had for the last 10, 15 years over what brand it is that they wear of jerseys and uniforms. But I just overall, I don't see too many benefits from moving away from Nike to Adidas.
I mean, the only benefit I could really see is if somehow it ends up getting more money for NIL and stuff like that, or maybe NIL deals through Adidas. Maybe that could be a thing. But in general, like, I don't know, apparel wise, I wasn't a huge fan when Tennessee was the Adidas. I thought they had very bare bones, like t-shirt designs and everything. I don't remember them ever doing anything with shoes. Whereas like when Nike became a thing with Tennessee, they instantly dropped Tennessee themed shoes and everything. Like I've always thought the apparel is better for Nike, but you mentioned like Miami, and I think they have good uniforms. I think Adidas has stepped things up in the past years, as opposed to how it was about a decade ago. But I don't know. I'm just not like a big fan of Adidas unless it leads to wins for Tennessee ultimately. But I will say, in terms of like gear for football, like for what the players would be wearing, oddly enough, I always liked Adidas cleats more than Nike. I thought Nikes were too stiff and like too tight. Because I got a pair before when I was in high school, and I thought they looked really cool. Tried them on, tried running in them, gave them a chance for maybe about like a month or so, and I was like, I can't do this anymore. And I had a couple of pair of Nike cleats too, and I always thought Adidas felt better. So in terms of like play on the field, I don't know how Nike cleats are in today's age, but I know about like 10 years ago, I wasn't a huge fan of them. So maybe players could like the feel of it more, but I know that it's not always about the feel. A lot of the times it's about how you look too. And I will say Nike does have better looking cleats for sure. And just apparel, uniforms in general.
Yeah, I think it depends a lot on the person, right? It just depends on your preferences, what you think feels most comfortable, and it's ultimately got to fit that need. You got to have some kind of comfort while you're playing out there, and that's a big part of it. And another thing too that we should talk about is the alternate designs, obviously, because we've seen both Adidas and Nike try and design both the smoky gray and dark mode, and of course Adidas was the first one to do this. Um, the white outline on the dark mode back when it premiered in 2009. Not that it was called dark mode back then, but it's just not as clean as what Nike has created here recently. And of course, you've seen too Tennessee release smoky grays here recently with the with Nike, and those look a lot cleaner, I feel like, than the ones that Adidas released. And let me see if I can share my screen here and show you a monstrosity that was created by Adidas that Tennessee didn't even wear because Butch Jones thought it was so ugly. And yeah, it's brutal. Let me show you this. If that's showing. Yeah. Look at that. Look at that garbage right there on the far right.
And I think they sold those briefly too, didn't they? Like I think like how every single one of Tennessee uniforms ends up being. Like I think those got leaked beforehand, and then like they never ended up releasing them. But no, those look awful.
Yeah, those look bad. No, I'll be completely honest. The ones that they wore against Austin Peay in 2023, designed by Nike, those were bad too. Very, very bad with the yoke. And I get what they were doing, right? It was, kind of a nod to Condridge and what he did here, but it didn't look good with the gray, and just the fact that game ended so poorly for Tennessee, it felt like, and was just a harbinger of things to come. Yeah, not one you want to go back to, but overall, I would say Nike has done a better job with the smoky grays, and even the ones this year I thought were really well done. Just with the designs, because it was honoring the 3 grand regions, I think, of Tennessee. So that was pretty cool. And then the ones they created back in 2015 when they busted out the smoky gray helmets, those were pretty clean.
Yeah, and speaking of the helmets, I mean, I would assume that Nike has got trademarks on that and stuff too. So if Tennessee ends up switching to Adidas, I highly doubt that there will be any more of the Smoky Mountains on the helmets or anything like that, which would be very disappointing because I don't know about you, but I felt like the helmets was the coolest part about Tennessee's smoky gray uniforms.
Yeah. And the white helmet on top of the gray uniform, that just felt like it clashed too much when they debuted them back in 2013. I was not a huge fan of that look. I bought the jersey because, 11-year-old me is, again, we're at that time where, Oregon jerseys are selling like crazy because they're eccentric looking. Seattle Seahawks, they had some interesting looking neon jerseys. That's every 11 to 13-year-old boy's favorite color. So that's why people started rooting for the Seahawks. And, it also helped that they were winning Super Bowls. But, I was just looking for something different. And, of course, you had the checkers on the numbers, which I did think was kind of cool. But overall, just not as clean as the current iterations of the smoky gray that we've seen, or past Nike iterations, I should say, of the smoky gray.
Yeah, I would agree on that. One thing that I wouldn't be opposed to, I'm still trying to figure out my thoughts on it, but I wouldn't mind seeing the black outlines come back for the white uniforms. I mean, I was happy when Tennessee got away from that during the time because my favorite my favorite uniforms that Tennessee ever wore were actually before my time, like the Andy Kelly era
Yeah.
where they had the white jerseys with the orange
Orange
outline
outlines. Yeah,
and
those
then
are
the
cool.
orange pants. I love that a lot.
Yeah.
So I mean, but looking back on it, I kind of get a little nostalgic thinking about the black outline uniforms. And of course, like, Peyton Manning wore that back in the day too. Like going back to like what you mentioned with people saying like winning the national championship and having nostalgia with that because those are the uniforms Tennessee was wearing. I wouldn't be opposed to going back to that, or like I said, my dream would be with the orange outline, but it might be too retro of a look.
Well, look, I'm no designer here, but if we were to, potentially put that black outline on the Nike uniforms under the current font, how do we think that would look?
I don't know. I would have to see it, to be honest, because
Yeah.
like I mentioned earlier, I'm not a big fan of the font.
Yeah. No, I understand too. Like, I don't necessarily love that they went away from it. Like, one here recently that I've appreciated kind of going with a bit of a throwback is Georgia with its numbers specifically, because I don't know what year that was, maybe 2012, 13, where they switched to that font and then they flipped back to one that they wore in the early 2000s that I think just looks much cleaner because they had the smaller numbers there for a while. Let me try and pull this up and show you guys what I'm talking about. Um, but these I just don't think they're nearly as clean as what Georgia wears now. Um, yeah. So all right, so I got it here. Um, so on the old Google, so you can see down here in this corner where the white jersey is, that font, which is what they used to wear for about a, I don't know, 9-10 year period. And then you go over here to the left, which is something closer to what they're wearing now, which is actually not a picture that was taken more recently, but you get the point. Sometimes in order to go forward, you need to take a step backward. Not necessarily saying that Tennessee needs to move from Nike to Adidas to do that, but you could make even better looks with Nike potentially. And I think anything that they give you would be a preference for some of these players over what Adidas could give you.
Yeah. I mean, like I mentioned before, I'm more of a fan of the Nike uniforms overall. It would be nice to like switch up of the font in Adidas schools. Texas A&M. I can't remember if they switched fonts or not in recent time, but I
They
will.
did.
They did. Okay, that's what
Yeah.
I thought.
Because they had for a while, like there was you'd see it on their white numbers. There's like a little, um, well, no, when on their white jerseys, there's like this little outline on the numbers, like near the top of them, I want to say, or like in the middle of them. And then they've just flipped to solid numbers here lately. And I don't, I don't necessarily think that's a worse look, but I still just don't think it's pretty. Maybe just because I'm not a huge maroon guy, but it's just, I don't know. It's not a very aesthetically pleasing look to me.
Yeah, I mean, I'm on the other side of the fence a little bit. I kind of like their modern like fonts on Texas A&M, but one thing that I did like, I don't know if they've still done this in the past years or not, or if they did it last year, but they did something very unique where they tried to make it look like throwback, like they designed like fake holes like in the jersey on the numbers, and I always thought that was a cool idea too.
Yeah. Well, it depends on the throwbacks because throwbacks can be risky. As I mentioned with the nod to Condridge that the 2023 iterations of the Smoky Grays had, but Illinois did one this year. That was, forget which coach it was they were honoring that day, but they did like this weird 1920s throwback that just looked nasty. Do you know what I'm talking about, Jordan?
Yeah, I actually do because I was playing with Illinois in my dynasty in
Okay.
college football recently. Yeah, very oddball. It was like something you would see from like the OG like Packers or Bears
Yeah.
uniforms.
Because when you have different colors in these throwbacks, as a neutral observer, somebody that's not a fan of either team watching the game, you get a little confused. Because the Eagles have one too where it's like yellow and blue, not even green. And like I like their what is that, 80s or 90s throwback where they go to the lighter green. I actually really like those. But they wore some one time that were yellow and blue, and you'd think it was the Chargers watching it, but no, it's just the Eagles. Thankfully, Tennessee does not have that problem where it's had more than one color historically. So the only thing you got to worry about is if the orange helmets make a reappearance, which Tennessee fans hope that doesn't happen for a very long time.
See, okay, I'm glad you mentioned the orange helmets because initially when that South Carolina game happened, of course, no one really wants to remember that, but I felt like it was a little unfair that to just blame it all on the helmets. Like, I'm not opposed to seeing them come back. Just hopefully there'd be a good memory surrounding them because I mean, I don't know. Like, it was interesting to see Tennessee switch it up. And I know that when I was a kid, that was something I always wanted to see because you were talking about how Oregon was doing things all the time that got kids excited. They were just seeing all these crazy different color combinations and whatnot. I always thought, like, man, what would it look like if Tennessee had an orange helmet? And of course, bad memories surrounded it. I mean, Tennessee ended up their chances of going to the college football playoffs were done there. Hendon Hooker got injured, but I don't know. I wanted to see them come back again, to be honest. And I feel like I'm the minority in that situation, but I wouldn't be opposed to them trying it out again. Just hopefully, maybe that's what Tennessee should wear for homecoming against New Mexico State.
Okay, so wear the orange helmets with an orange jersey. Is that what you're asking for?
Well,
that would be an interesting look because Florida has done this from time to time, like once a season, maybe. Obviously, Oklahoma State does it a good bit, but Tennessee orange is so distinct from those two that that would be a very interesting image. Or what you could do is you could go orange helmet on the dark mode jersey or potentially an orange helmet on a smoky gray. There's so many different combinations that you could do here. I'm not necessarily suggesting that because we've also seen that uniform combos don't necessarily equal championships. See Oregon and Alabama. Alabama is as plain and simple as you can get, and they have more national championship victories than any other program. What, this century? Maybe, yeah. Yeah,
like
this
ever.
century for sure. Yeah, ever.
Unless you're counting like Yale.
And they are just so dry as uniforms, and they just so simple. Yet you got Oregon over here doing all these crazy experiments with Phil Knight's Nike money, and they're not winning any national championships. They'll win 9-10 regular season games, and they're not going to be any happier once it reaches the postseason, just because they're not going to win anything beyond a certain point.
I will say if Tennessee was to go back to Adidas, one thing that I did like during those times is it seemed, and I guess it depends on the head coach as well. Tennessee wore the orange pants more frequently at the white uniforms. And like I mentioned earlier, that was my favorite Tennessee uniform ever. The white jersey with the orange pants. If Tennessee did switch back to Adidas and they made that more frequently, maybe they could change my mind a little bit. But I feel like Tennessee does not wear that uniform enough.
Trying to envision the outline of the orange outline specifically on the white uniforms that Nike has created. I don't know if that would be a good look. Maybe it's just me, and maybe I'd have to see it, but I can't imagine it would look good. But the orange outline would be a cool feature to return if Adidas should be the brand that Tennessee settles with. But at the same time, I do think you've got to clean it up a little bit, make it, maybe make the numbers a little smaller, make it a little more modern looking than it was back then. I had a thought just a second ago, and it just escaped me. Oh, yeah, the orange pants. Tennessee's a little cursed right now with the white jerseys and orange pants of late. They've lost, I think, 3 or 4 straight wearing that combo. I know that Mizzou game 2 years ago, they lost. Arkansas this season was another one. Georgia in 2022 was also a loss for Tennessee in those. I think the last one they won might have been Kentucky in 2021.
I think you're right. I'm pretty sure you're right with the Kentucky game and
Yeah.
everything.
I think the Stormtrooper look is just so much cleaner.
I know, and that's what I hear almost every Tennessee fan say on Twitter, but I don't know. Maybe I watched too much A Decade of Dominance on repeat when I was a kid. I don't know if any of the listeners have ever watched that Tennessee like documentary thing. It was like based on Tennessee's success in the 90s, but man, so many good games back then. At least they were wearing the orange pants, and I just thought it looked just perfect and right. But with the orange outline and the numbers, I think it would be really cool for a throwback uniform. But like you said, I mean, in the modern day, I don't know, but I really do like that uniform back when it was going on in the 90s.
Does anybody really outline their jerseys like that anymore with one color on another color? I'm trying to think off the top of my head. I can't think of one.
I can't think either, and there might be a reason for that too, with the press box and everything and being able to read off numbers. That very well could be a thing.
Well, that's why the outlines came to be.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's why the black outlines exist, so the announcers could see them when they're on the road. You could decipher what jerseys or who was wearing what number when they were on the road, because they just look like these orange blobs from a distance.
Yeah, so it might not be as practical, but it would be really cool, like for a throwback uniform, or at least in my opinion.
So we will see what happens in the great Nike and Adidas debate here in, I guess, the next year, because it's July 2026, I think, when the contract runs up. But and I'm sure this will not be the last time this conversation is mentioned as well, just because you got plenty of people that are pretty opinionated about the matter. This is probably the most I've ever talked about jerseys in any kind of show. But it's a hot topic of controversy. We need to figure out what this team is going to be wearing and if it will draw in more or possibly lose out on some recruits for Tennessee.
Yeah, and I mean, like I said earlier, I would like Tennessee to switch or keep the Nike. That's me. But at the end of the day, whatever gets the victories, whatever gets the recruits there. If Adidas revamped their game, I mean, like I mentioned earlier, I like Miami's uniforms a lot. I feel like they're an outlier in the grand scheme of things compared to other Adidas school, because I'm not a fan of Nebraska's really. But I mean, if they could make Tennessee a focal point and put a lot of effort into working on the uniforms, it could be cool. But at the end of the day, I think most Tennessee fans just want to see Tennessee win. And of course, it's keep wearing orange, but I mean, just wear orange and win.
Yeah, no black numbers on just straight white jerseys. That's a boring look without any Tennessee orange on it. It's like, because who was it? It's Iowa State, and they wore those jerseys for the Pop-Tart Bowl this year. You remember? They had the white. It was black helmets with a white jersey.
I actually didn't see that.
No red or yellow featured anywhere. Let me pull this up. Like, not to say Tennessee will ever do this, but
surely not.
Yeah, this was not a look that I'm really into, to be honest with you. Let me share my screen real quick so you can get an idea of what I'm talking about. But note to any athletic apparel designer, do not give Tennessee this. If it'll go back right quick. Yeah, this thing right here that I got my arrow around, don't design just a black helmet with a white jersey. That just looks so dull.
It looks like something you'd see in like Superstar KO of Madden.
Yeah, that like I'm all for cool designs on jerseys. Don't make a dull one that doesn't even feature your school colors.
Yeah, and thankfully Tennessee's never had that problem to my knowledge. I mean, every uniform, even dating back to like the 30s and stuff like that, seemingly always had orange. So I wouldn't imagine that would end up being a thing in the future. But if someone did suggest that in a meeting or something like that, that person needs to be fired.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm about uniformed out, Jordan. Do you have anything else that we need to discuss tonight on the note of Tennessee football?
Um, Not off the top of my head. I mean, it's been a dead week as you'd expect in the month of May. Not much news going on, but of course, like we're always going to keep y'all informed, and we appreciate everything that y'all do, checking in each and every week, liking and subscribing and everything, and of course, turning on the notifications and everything. We appreciate y'all a lot, and y'all are what makes this show go. We couldn't do this without you. So we really appreciate it a lot, and we thank y'all for tuning in. And of course, like when more information comes out, we're gonna relay that to you and have a conversation about it, and hopefully y'all enjoy it.
Yeah, keep an eye on all of our stuff on the social medias. You can see my Twitter at right here. Jordan, I don't know why yours is not on the screen for some reason. You're just what, at Jordan_Binkley3?
Yes.
Okay.
Jordan_Binkley3 on Twitter.
That is Jordan's Twitter account. Again, I've shared it once, but he is a part of some lost Tennessee archive footage that is circulating around on YouTube. So I guess it's not really lost, but Jordan is on YouTube in more than one place, and I probably am too, honestly. But yeah, you can see Jordan waving his Reggie White jersey after Derek Barnett recorded a sack in 2016, if you'd really like to, on YouTube. But that's going to do it for us tonight. Again, thanks to all of you guys for tuning in. We really appreciate it. And again, please like, share, and subscribe to the Tennessee at the Voice of College Football. Tell your friends about it, even if they're not Tennessee football fans. If you know a Georgia fan out there that really wants to hate watch a Tennessee show, by all means, share this to them. They might learn something. It could be beneficial to them. They could learn about Tennessee's biggest weakness before the third weekend of the season.
Yeah, and
really help them out.
And another thing too, everyone that's tuning in live, like we appreciate y'all a lot, and it means a lot y'all coming in and supporting. But also too, like if there's anything you missed, go back and watch and everything. And like, we got these videos here. You guys can always go back and watch. And even if you don't have time, you can have the video running on in the background while you're cooking or anything. Just like, we're going to be here to stay and keep y'all informed. And we're going to be giving y'all the news as soon as it comes to us and have interesting conversations about it. So thank y'all all for tuning in and everything.
Well, that'll do it for us. For Jordan Binkley, I am Tucker Harlan. We will talk to you guys again next week.